comments. It's a baby. 3 minutes and counting till we go live. It's the Tuesday Night Spectacular.
What's up, everybody? It's a 4TH&Goal broadcast.
Your video's off.
I know.
So's mine.
I'll be up there in 1 second. How's everybody doing tonight? It was a hell of a week 1.
Welcome to the Lions Brag Hour with the star of our show, Christopher Serra.
Okay. What's up, buddy? Sorry, my YouTube started going crazy.
Yeah, likely story.
So we got a big discussion. We have to get right off the bag.
Well, you need to enable your video and let's go.
Here we go.
That's right. Yes. Yes. Let the bragging begin. Welcome to Lions Brag Hour right here.
They said we couldn't do it.
I tried to find a stuffed black crow that was affordable, but unfortunately they didn't have any. they were, they just didn't have one. So I'm here to announce that I was completely wrong. And on behalf of the Kansas City Chief fans that are in attendance and watching, congratulations to the Detroit Lions. There's a lot of excuses that could be made, but we're not going to do that. We're just going to talk about reasons why things happen. And, the Detroit Lions looked really good on the Thursday night opener. I was impressed with Jahmyr Gibbs, the rookie from Alabama. Amon-Ra St. Brown picked right up where he left off last year, as far as receiving. The offensive line was very good. The defense played very well, I thought. The Chiefs really, they just let down, in my opinion. I mean, they didn't have Travis Kelce, which is understandable. I still think that they should have been able to do some things. I thought the defense played really well, considering they did not have Chris Jones, who will be back this week against Jacksonville. Finally ended his holdout. But the biggest story for me out of this game is the embarrassment that is Jawan Taylor. Okay. As a Chiefs fan, I could clearly see what they were talking about. Everyone could see it. They talked about it on the broadcast. He's lined up in the backfield at right tackle. They never did anything about it. He false started. He's not on the line of scrimmage. And I don't know, but I sure hope that this does not continue, because he was clearly telegraphing when it was a pass or when it was a run. If he lines up properly, okay, but he still has the advantage of being back a little bit, like the referee, I think it was Terry McCauley on the broadcast said, the helmet can be even with the waistline, which means he's still going to be back, about 1.5 feet, 2 feet from the line of scrimmage is legal. About 1.5 feet, 2 feet. You need to turn your volume down.
Got it.
Anyway, because I can hear myself echoing. But he clearly, he was clearly not on the line of scrimmage. I suggested that there was a chance, and I looked at the film and I was wrong, that he didn't have to be on the line of scrimmage if there was 7 men on the line. If somebody on the other end was on the line of scrimmage, okay, that he didn't have to be on the line of scrimmage. But that was not the case. He was one of the 7 that was supposed to be there. My hopes are that this is a one-time occurrence and that Brett Veach, the GM for the Kansas City Chiefs, did not sign this guy knowing that he lines up that way all the time and telegraphs run and pass. If it turns out that they knew that and they still signed him, what a mistake this is by the Kansas City Chiefs. And so, that's my biggest concern. We could talk about Kadarius Toney's inability to catch the football. I think he needed more practice time. I was really discouraged that they did not play Justin Ross and Richie James more in the game. We did see quite a bit of Sky Moore, but he couldn't get open. I think that he had a lot of coverage. They played coverage that I don't think that the Chiefs were prepared for, in comparison to what they were expecting.
Yeah.
And, which is, once again, not an excuse. It's just a reason. They had a game plan. The game plan wasn't going to work out against what they were seeing. And while they might have made some changes throughout the game, it wasn't enough. It just wasn't enough. It's week 1. And so, I mean, there's still plenty of time left in the season for them to get it right. But I was impressed with the Detroit Lions overall. I thought they should have scored a lot more points. The turnover obviously hurt them. But
did you know that was Marvin Jones's first career lost fumble?
Yes, they mentioned it during the broadcast.
Ain't that crazy? The person who don't turn the ball over does his first one right there at the 10-yard line. And I mean, I kind of expected our offense to be a little bit rusty since they didn't get to play a lot in the preseason.
Right.
They didn't play any. So I kind of expected that. And other than the miscues that we made on offense, that was the best Detroit Lions game I've ever seen. And why I say that is because 9 out of 10, our history, if it's a 1-point game, late in the fourth quarter, we lose 9 out of 10 games like that. 9 out of 10, usually we find a way to lose. Now, we either play a game. Now, in our past, we could play your best football from beginning to end and win a game. Sure. We could also, with Matthew Stafford around, we could be down by 3 touchdowns going in the fourth quarter and pull a comeback out. But we could never win the close-ass games and make the plays that we had to make that night to win that game. So, I mean, I was honest about my feelings about playoffs, possibly a division win. I'm telling you, after Thursday night, I didn't know how to react. I did not know what to do with my hands or anything afterwards. Because I was just.
I know what you were doing. I know what you were doing. You were so happy.
Hey, if we could start a season out like that every year, I'll be a happy camper. This is probably the best start of a season I've ever had as a Lions fan in my entire life. I'm going to stay humble. Because I know no game's easy.
Well, don't start with the humble stuff now.
I'm staying humble. I'm not going to be the crazy Lion fans. I've seen a few of these crazy Lion fans, and I'll bet there's a select few of you running around there talking about a Super Bowl, and we haven't even got that far yet.
Yeah, because
so I'm staying humble to that kind of talk.
We're going to recap all of the games, and of course, there is news from all of them. We'll get to Aaron Rodgers here after a little bit, but make it so I can share, and we'll go through all of the games and our thoughts about all of them.
What's up, Ron? What's up, Brandon?
It's disabled. I need to be able to share.
Okay, sorry. What's up, Nathan? There you go. You got it. I was just going to hit the cigar a few times and put it out, but I might actually.
Yeah, oh no, you're keeping the shades on the whole time. Don't lie now. Come on.
I'm keeping the shades. I might smoke this whole guy. I've earned it. Hey, yeah. Jimmy L.
You earned it?
I've earned it. Hang on, time out. Before we move this next segment, I'm just going, Jimmy, you're getting your spotlight here. So Jimmy L and the Renegades has been running around about 3 months telling me how the Lions have no chance. Arrowhead is too loud. They're too strong. You won't see no Lions fans in the crowd. All this non-shit, anything basically from real football talk. Not only did we win, we had, I think, maybe one false start all game.
Right.
No interceptions. And if you didn't notice at the end of the game or throughout the game, there was a lot of motherfucking blue in that crowd.
There was quite a few fans. You know,
said on the local
great.
Sports
That
radio?
shows that Detroit fans can travel. You know, I'm sure they've been looking forward to this. You know, they're in prime time. You know, they're playing against the defending champions. It's a huge game for the franchise. And I'll tell you, when it comes to the Lions, the one thing for sure that I know, okay, you guys got a defensive player of the year candidate in Aiden Hutchinson. That dude is an absolute beast. Even with Jawan Taylor in the backfield, they still had to chip him to keep him off of Patrick Mahomes. And I tell you, man, he's like your TJ Watt. he's like, you're Micah Parsons. He is going to be in the running for the Defensive Player of the Year if he continues to play like that. I hope he stays healthy. I look forward to seeing what he can do throughout the year against the right tackles of this league, because he's going to eat them alive.
Dude, I'm stoked. I cannot wait until Sunday. I mean, I'm like trying to fast forward this week already.
Right. Okay, so let's go to, what we had for this week here. It'll say preview. Come on. Oh, I don't have it up there yet. Hang on a second. Da-da-da-da. Let me find it. Where'd you go? There you are. There we go. Anyway, it'll say preview on it because that's the only thing that I've got here. I don't want it to, I didn't have to make it.
Ron says Thursday was sloppy on both sides, but good things by both teams, which is typical of week one. But I was ecstatic that the Lions pulled it off. I didn't lose a close game, especially against the champs. I think it's because the new Hutchinson jersey showed up Thursday night.
Right. Okay, so going to the Carolina Panthers and the Atlanta Falcons, it was pretty much as I had predicted. Tyler Allgeier's got the majority of the carries running the football. Bijan Robinson was used mostly as a receiver. When he did run the ball, it was only a few yards here and there. Carolina's offensive line was terrible. And, they were in the game for quite a while, and then Atlanta took over there at the end. Any thoughts on that game before we go to the next one, buddy?
I didn't really catch the Carolina game. I flipped through. I flipped through a bunch. See, I just got this stick. My grandpa knows a guy, and the dude has it hooked up where you get free NFL package. So honestly, I got stuck in some games, and I flipped it on a few times. Atlanta defense don't look bad. Their offense didn't look that bad either. I think Atlanta, I'm going to say my previous talks on Atlanta, preseason talks, I'm going to bump them up, and they could be a wild card team. There's somebody to look out for. I was pretty impressed by Riddler. He looked pretty good out there.
Ron said the reason that Hutchinson played so well is because he got his jersey Thursday night. The Baltimore Ravens were not as explosive offensively as I thought they were going to be. In fact, I thought they struggled at times against the Houston Texans. They come out with the victory in the end, but they lost J.K. Dobbins for the season with an Achilles tear. That's going to be, hurtful for their run game. That means that Justice Hill's probably going to become the number one runner now. They'll be on the market looking for a backup. I think they still got Gus Edwards, but they're going to need another guy to make it a 3 rotation like they usually do. As far as Houston went, C.J. Stroud, typical rookie mistakes. They ran the ball not as much as they should have, but Pierce is coming off of that injury, and so perhaps that factored into it. I didn't think that Singletary was a factor in the game, but when it come to running the football, but Houston does have a decent defense, and I think maybe that helped hold down Baltimore at the time. But Baltimore was clearly the better team, and it took them a while to really take the bull by the horns, if you will, no pun intended, and secure the victory in that game.
Yeah. That game, I flipped through it, just checking the score, watched a couple plays. I didn't really pay attention to it because, to me, I thought it was kind of one of the boring games. So I kept bouncing around to the exciting games a lot.
Yeah, Odell Beckham Jr. is supposed to be, the number one guy on the team. And it was rookie Zay Flowers that really, put the moves on him there. Odell Beckham Jr. only had like one catch through 3 quarters. And so, that was pretty disappointing. He didn't, come to play after being out for basically a year and a half. But that's the story on that game. I thought from the beginning that Cleveland was going to beat, Cincinnati. You got Joe Burrow coming in. He hasn't played in the preseason. He's 1-4 now, 1-5 against the Cleveland Browns in the last 6 games, that they played against them. Deshaun Watson was not sharp throwing the ball, but he looked much better than he did last year. Nick Chubb is a beast running the ball, and their defense was lights out against that Cincinnati front. I think they exposed Orlando Brown Jr. for exactly what we thought he was in Kansas City. He's not a left tackle. He's a right tackle, and he gave up some sacks in the game.
Yeah. I was actually really shocked when I seen what was going on in Cincinnati. It was another game. I flipped back and forth a few times just to see if Burrow looked any better. But every time I see it, they were just dead. That was probably one of the worst games I've ever seen Joe Burrow play since he's came in the league.
Indianapolis hung with the Jacksonville Jaguars for about 3 quarters, and then the Jags turned it on. I think this was a case of just being shaky early in the season, because they have not. What do you want to call it? They have not played, a whole lot in the preseason and won. And so, for Jacksonville and Indianapolis, I was impressed with Anthony Richardson's ability to get out of the pocket and run the football. He had 2 rushing touchdowns for the Colts. You could tell they're clearly missing Jonathan Taylor at the running back spot. If he manages to come back and they get things ironed out, I think Indianapolis can be a playoff team with Anthony Richardson, because they did some things against Jacksonville.
Yeah, they did.
But Jacksonville, hey, they went to their new number 1 receiver. Calvin Ridley showed out for them. And, the 2-headed attack of Travis Etienne and Tank Bigsby running the football looked pretty good. And the Chiefs are going to have their hands full this week down in Jacksonville.
Yeah, I agree. That game, Jacksonville looked pretty sharp. I like their defense. Richardson made some good plays. And I agree with you. If they get Jonathan Taylor and get a better running game, I think they'll help Richardson be even better for sure. And they
Did you watch any of the Tampa, Minnesota game?
You know I did, David. And after what I seen what happened. Now, mind you, I understand Tampa still has a good defense. But as right now, I haven't seen nothing out of Minnesota that truly scares me. I know they're still good. They still have the capability of being a good team and a tough team down the stretch. It's a long season. It's only week 1. But nothing really popped out to make me really think. I think the running game actually went down right now.
They had a running game. Alexander Madison is not Dalvin Cook. They threw for over 300 yards. Jordan Addison got into the end zone with a touchdown, but 9 catches, 150 yards for Justin Jefferson, but he couldn't get in the end zone. I thought Minnesota's defense, looked pretty good. I mean, they only gave up 20 points, but, they're doing it against a team that you don't expect to put up a lot of points with Baker Mayfield and company. This team here, has got to be able to score. Once again, week 1, I expect both these teams to improve. I was surprised that Tampa was able to hang with Minnesota. And it's pretty much because Minnesota's offense faltered down the stretch. They couldn't punch it in the end zone when they needed to. And, just too many miscues and mistakes on their part. But Tampa, I don't think is going to be nearly as bad as we all thought they were going to be. We'll just have to see how they, react in the next game.
Yeah, I mean, Baker's playing for his life. So there's a possibility, Baker finds his groove and actually keeps a job and keeps it being able to be a starter. That's what he's playing for. He got a defense that can keep him in games. He just got to figure out and find out what works for him to play at that level he needs to play at as a starter. Because to me, he's like that QB that you see glimpses that he could be really good and special, and then the next week it's a whole different guy back there. And to me, he just needs to find whatever works for him, or the rookie's going to get the helm next year.
We're behind on some comments here. Ron's got a lot to say. He thinks Zay Flowers will be a top wide receiver. I agree there. He was stunned how bad Cincinnati looked. It's pretty much exactly what I thought they would have. They lost Samaje Perine, who looked pretty good for Denver when he got to play. Mixon was the lead runner, and they were bottling him up, on that Cleveland defensive front. Like I said, Burrow did not play in the preseason. He's coming off the calf injury. He did sign the biggest deal in NFL history. Forgot to mention that. But, that's only temporary, with these other guys that are coming up for contract extensions. But, they only put up 3 points, not good. I know it was raining and all, but, you got to be able to put up some points, and Cleveland's defense stifled them. The Jags, he says the Jags are still the leaders in the division, which they will win. I wholeheartedly agree. I don't see any of those teams, winning the division. Tennessee, and we move on here to Tennessee versus the Saints. I got to watch the end of that game. My understanding is Derek Carr played very well, but it was on the back of the defense, which he has never had down in Oakland/Las Vegas, that helped them win that game. Both teams were rusty. Tannehill threw 3 interceptions in the game. Henry didn't run very well throughout the game. They did utilize DeAndre Hopkins. He was able to make some plays when he got the ball and it wasn't being intercepted. But I watched the end of that game, and, good for New Orleans. I think that while they didn't look great this first week, Tennessee's always got a really good defense. And so by able to get the win, they're at home. They start the season out on the right foot. Ron says that if Tampa beats the Bears this week, he will start giving them their props. But that being said, Tampa Bay's defense looked really good. I actually think that Chicago can beat Tampa Bay in that game. But, I think that now that they're getting their feet underneath them, I liked what I saw from the wide receivers for Chicago. And, of course, we'll talk about that a little bit when we get to that game. Anything about the Saints and Titans here, Chris?
I flicked to it. Like you said, it was kind of sloppy mistakes, but Derek Carr got his first win as the Saints. And Tennessee is kind of where we thought. We think they were going to be a good team, and they're not looking like they're going to be a good team this year. So I guess we'll see how they finish.
I was really disappointed in the San Francisco-Pittsburgh game.
San
Francisco came to play. Pittsburgh did not on offense. They really struggled to run the football, and that could be because of San Francisco's defensive line. They added Teron Hargrave, and then Nick Bosa signed his contract just before the season began. And so they had their 2 horses up front, and they really, really attacked that Pittsburgh offensive line, which even though it's revamped, did not look very good on Sunday.
No, that's actually the first thought that came to my mind when I turned the game on to see what was happening. San Francisco looked good. Pittsburgh did not show up. And I think everybody got the answer about Prudy because I've seen a few comments. Oh, everybody's going to figure this kid out. He's not that good, you know. Well, I think Prudy's the real deal. If he can do that week in, week out, and put some points on the board, swing the ball like he was, I think San Francisco might have found their quarterback.
Yeah, let's just do a real quick fantasy spotlight on Brock Purdy. Okay, he is surrounded by weapons. He's the kind of quarterback that the head coach there, Kyle Shanahan, has wanted. You know, I think they kind of made a mistake there when they brought in Garoppolo. They could have waited and got Kirk Cousins because Cousins is the same kind of guy that Purdy is. He's got just enough oomph on the ball. He tries to make smart decisions. He tries to stay away from mistakes. And if you surround him with weapons, the offense will be humming right along. Combine that with the defense that the 49ers have, and you've got yourself a winning franchise and a winning team. And they're the favorites right now in the NFC to get to the Super Bowl after the first week. Yes, I know Dallas shut out the Giants in New York, but you know, that game just started out bad for the Giants from the start and just got worse the whole time.
I'm not going to sit there and say you're wrong on that analogy, but this is how I look at it, is Dallas can't even technically be in that conversation yet. Now, they can earn their way and compete for that. But what I mean about that is the 49ers would have made it most likely to the Super Bowl if Prudy don't get hurt last year. You know what I'm saying? And then he comes out with this week and how good they looked. It looked like they didn't even miss a step from before Prudy got hurt. So that should be why San Francisco technically has the best odds out of NFC to go to the Super Bowl, is because they've already seen this team last year, and it's looking even better this year at the start of the season. Now, I'm not saying Dallas can't be there, but to me, I'm going to go off of what we've seen. In my eyes, I go off of what I've seen actually work. Now, Dallas was good last year, but they weren't as good as the 49ers to lose 3 quarterbacks and still almost go to the Super Bowl.
Right. Well, you know, I understand where you're coming from there. You know, I'm happy for the 49ers. I think, just like you said, they've got their quarterback. I think that Pittsburgh was stifled by that defense. I think we'll see Pittsburgh improve as the season goes on. They looked really good in the preseason, and I know it's just preseason, but they played well at the end of last season as well. And I think that if they could just get their feet underneath them a little bit, they could start rattling off some wins. Moving on real quick, you know, I thought they were going to start Clayton Tune, the rookie, but they traded for Joshua Dobbs. He ended up starting for the Cardinals. And Sam Howell pulled it out at the end for Washington. They actually trailed the Cardinals in the fourth quarter. I didn't watch much of this game at all, but I know that they were able to run the football with Brian Robinson, and that Howell ran it in for the touchdown. And I just seen some highlights. I don't expect anything really, for the most part, out of the Cardinals this year. We've talked about, I thought that they would go winless. When they were winning in the fourth quarter, I was stunned. And, you know, Washington came alive in the fourth and finally was able to overtake them. But I know it's just week one, but that sure doesn't bode well for Washington going forward when you struggle with a team like Arizona.
I mean, I'm not making excuses for them when I say this, but I was reading an article the other day, right at like Sunday night, Monday morning. And it made a lot of sense. They did point out that Arizona's defense, which I did watch, I didn't watch a lot of it, but I watched some portions of it, just because I was stunned myself that Carolina was actually, or not Carolina, but the Cardinals were actually winning. And their defense is not that bad. It was actually pretty good. I mean, obviously, if the offense can't get better than that on Sunday the rest of the year, then they're gonna have a rough year. I mean, they're still not going to the playoffs, but they might not be 0-17 team. They might come out, sneak out of the grass, and steal a couple games from some good teams that don't take them serious. And Washington.
Ron says he doesn't know if the Cardinals looked better than he thought or if the Redskins are just that bad.
I mean, they didn't show me any impressive. I was kind of, there's been some hype. There's been hype building up the Washington Commanders, and this year Snyder's gone, So, but they didn't. But I have to agree with Ron. They didn't really show anything like, whoa. It could be a long year in Washington.
Well, let's get to in your division, and I tell you, it's not going to be as easy as you thought it was going to be when it comes to Green Bay. Jordan Love looked really good. I watched the majority of this game. He didn't have Christian Watson at receiver, but he had Musgrave, he had Romeo Doubs catching the ball. Aaron Jones was a beast running it down their throat there in Chicago. And while I think Chicago will improve, I like the receivers that they have, and I saw glimpses of what the Bears can be, but they just didn't put it all together in this game. And as usual, the Packers beat the Bears.
I'll give credit to Green Bay and Love. He had a pretty strong game, but I hate to say this. I don't know if I got to see what he does next week. Obviously, he played a great game. I'm not taking nothing from him, but is he that good right now, or was it just the Bears just didn't show up on defense and made him look that good? Because, I mean, I watched that game quite a bit, and it was just like Green Bay played an all-around great game, and the Bears were just the typical Bears when it comes to Green Bay. They either beat them or choke. But once again, I do like the wideouts. They do show the potential. They can have a better passing game. But also, Justin Fields didn't look much better than he was last year, which I'm not sounding an alarm. Like you said, it's week one. A lot of teams are rusty. But if he don't pick it up in the next few weeks, they might actually have a real issue in Chicago with another QB.
I'm not worried about that. And the one thing that I forgot to mention when I was talking about Chicago earlier is Rashawn Johnson really provided a big spark for them when he came in at running back. And I thought that after showing what he was capable of doing, against Green Bay, he needs to get a lot more touches in the game. And, he could end up being their starter by the time the season is over, depending on health and if Khalil Herbert can recapture some of his, positivity from the previous seasons. But I really liked what I saw out of Rashawn Johnson, who played backup at Texas behind Bijan Robinson. And so,
real
Rashawn
talk.
Johnson, I think, is going to be a force at running back for Chicago.
Real talk, that might be a move Chicago needs to do is start him over Herbert, because if he's coming in the game and be able to do stuff to keep the pressure off of Fields and allow Fields to be more mobility and pass better, instead of having to worry about defenders after them all the time because they can't run the ball effective, that might do a lot, because now the defense is they're going to hold back blitzes if they got to worry about a running back to be able to break it to the house, But I do is right now, I think I think Green Bay could be the second place team and be one of the stronger teams that we have to play. I still think they're beatable both games from what I see in our defense and what I've seen from them. But you know what I mean? It's any given Sunday. And I wouldn't be surprised if we do drop a game to one game to be honest, because they're going to be a lot better than a lot of people expected. Gary was a beast for him on defense. Gary's name was all over the field, all over the TV Sunday. So their defense seems like pretty good. So, but that's all I got about that game.
Did you catch any of the Raiders Broncos game?
No, I don't think I did this. I don't think I did because I like I said, I was watching. I got the new Fire Stick from our buddy that you get the free NFL package. Well, one of the channel games on it had the NASCAR race. So I can't remember exactly if I got to watch this game. I don't remember getting to watch much of this game. No, I didn't. Actually, no, I didn't.
NASCAR? You're killing me, son.
Well, no, because it's through a Fire Stick and it's all streamed and the dude's found a way to hack it so you get it for free. So it said this channel is playing NFL games, but when you clicked it, it was a NASCAR race. So
Right.
There was two games, the one late game, one early game that I missed because the one channel had NASCAR, and there was no other channel to go to. And I wasn't.
I watched the game between the Raiders and the Broncos. I was flipping back and forth between that and the other game, and I really thought the Broncos had it in the bag a couple of times, but they just kept making errors. I think that Sean Payton definitely has had an effect on Russell Wilson. I thought he looked a lot better in this first game than he did at all season last year. Garoppolo was Garoppolo. He made a couple of errors. I don't think they ran the ball enough against the Broncos front. Josh Jacobs looked good when he was in the game, but they did not get the ball to Devontae Adams like they should have. Jacoby Myers looked like he was the number one target almost the entire day for the Raiders. Cortland Sutton was like the number one target for Russell Wilson. And, he got it to his tight end a few times. And this really was kind of like a battle of defenses. And the Raiders actually showed up defensively in this game, if you will. But I just felt like the Raiders didn't win the game. The Broncos lost it. Moving on to the next game, I caught the very tail end of this one as they moved away from the local coverage that was over. I had a decent bet on this game for the Chargers to win. I had Austin Eckler scoring a touchdown. I had, Tyreek Hill scoring a touchdown. I had the points were going to be over, and but I needed the Chargers to win the game. But at the very end, Tyreek Hill makes the final catch of the game. He gets over 200 yards. They score the touchdown, and they come out with the victory based on their defense sacking Herbert at the end. The defense looked horrible. They gave up over 30 points. Both teams did. Till the very end, when it counted the most, Miami was able to make the stop and get the victory. But I think both of these teams are going to be a force to reckon with throughout the year. Tua Tagovailoa threw for over 400 yards through the air. And, they were an offensive explosion for sure. You could tell in the play calling that Kellen Moore's influence is to run the ball more for the Chargers than they have in the past. And I thought Eckler had a decent game. They used a lot of Joshua Kelly at the running back position. But, the head coach Staley, his specialty is supposed to be defense, and they just can't stop anybody.
Yeah.
Now granted, Miami has an explosive offense, but they just couldn't get them off the field. And
Yeah.
so I was disappointed in that. That would have been a big win, on a bet for me. But,
Yeah, because the
lost
Chargers won
$5
that
instead
game,
of
right?
winning 200.
Because the Chargers won, right?
No, Dolphins won.
Okay, yeah, the Dolphins. Yeah. I got confused, sorry. Yeah, I tried to tune into the game as much as that was a game I flopped around on. But it was pretty exciting from the plays I seen and the highlights. I told you to look out. I've been high on Miami. I think Miami's going to be a decent team, and I think the Chargers. I think they're going to be one of the better teams, and I think the Chargers should be up there too this year. Because I think stuff's going. I think this after week one, there's a possibility that this year could be one of the years that we see a little bit of difference at the end of the year on both conferences. Because just throwing it out there, if the Chiefs have off years of problems for the wideouts for the rest of the season, and they only got one liable great tight end, they might not get the repeat. You know what I'm saying? They might not be one or two. That's a possibility. No, I'm not writing the Chiefs off by any means at the week one. I'm just saying this week one was pretty entertaining, and it sets up that some storylines that could be some different teams in the playoffs than usual.
Well, the next two games really stunned me. The Eagles got out to a 16-0 lead and had to hold on against the New England Patriots. And the Seahawks, who I had favored to beat the Rams went into Seattle and bullied the Seahawks.
Yeah, they did.
They didn't have Cooper Kupp, and yet even without Cooper Kupp, it's Puka Kanuka, or I don't know his name, but he's the receiver that filled in for Cooper Kupp, and he played tremendous. The defense was not all that against the Rams. And although Bobby Wagner in his return to Seattle had a monster game in tackles, they did not dominate on defense like I thought they would. The running game was held quiet a little bit for Seattle. I think that forced Geno Smith to throw the ball a little bit more than they wanted him to. And when you do that, sometimes things don't work out for you. But, back to Philadelphia versus the Patriots, I just thought that, that the Eagles should have dominated the game. And instead of dominating the game, they let the Patriots back in. You could see the influence of Bill O'Brien in the offense for the Patriots. In the highlight clips and things that I saw, I thought Mac Jones played well, for what he's working with. And I think that New England is another one of those teams that's not going to be as bad as we thought they were originally. If they can play like this, and once again, granted, it's week one, but if they can play like that against the Eagles, they're going to have something to say in the AFC East now. And especially with the loss of Aaron Rodgers, New England could sneak into the playoffs, and ahead of the Jets at this point.
Yeah. I've read a few articles really hyping up New England. And honestly, I haven't paid much attention to the articles I read. And I haven't really brought it up here on the broadcast because I'm not going to lie, I didn't take it serious. Because every year, just because of the dynasty and what they've wore, you always see those articles hyping up New England football. But like you said, it stunned me because I didn't expect them to look that good as they did in that game against the Eagles. I mean, the Eagles had to fight and earn that victory. Because matter of fact, when I first turned the game on, it just started, and in New England just threw the pick this way. That play just happened. After that, I was like, okay, I kind of expected this. you know. And then I turned back and it was just like, holy crap. They just tied this game. Or it came close to tying it. Because it was right before halftime, I believe. So the Eagles are still a good team. You know, a little rusty, I would say. I expect them to be better in week 2. And I want to see how this New England plays out.
Well, the Giants come in there, you know, and they start their drive on Sunday Night Football, and they're running the ball good with Saquon Barkley, and they get lined up, you know, to kick the field goal. And the next thing you know, it's 6-0 Dallas because they missed the extra point. They get the ball back, and instead of trying to do what they did in their first drive, you know, and run the football, they get pass happy, picked off, pick 6, touchdown. And Dallas never looked back after that. On the strength of their defense, they won this game alone. The front was all over Daniel Jones. The Giants completely abandoned the run, and from that point, the game was over, Chris.
Yeah, honestly, I was really excited to watch it Sunday. I had to run out real quick. I got back, did what I did, got back home, turned the TV on, turned the game on for like 2.5 minutes, and it was already a blowout. I actually turned it off just after halftime. I was like, okay, I'm done. This game is at the point where it was boring to the point I tuned into it. Because I missed all the big scoring out in the beginning. I was just blown away. It was already 26-0 by halftime.
Don't read it. Just laugh. Oh, so the Buffalo Bills go into the Meadowlands, you know, and it's supposed to be a new era. And this is where we get to, you know, Aaron Rodgers plays 4 plays and tears his Achilles. I feel bad for him. I feel bad for the Jets. All of the hype that was going into this game, you know, they had Hard Knocks, the interviews, the predictions, media darlings, the New York Jets were.
Yeah.
And anyway,
Okay.
that's pretty funny.
Yeah.
And you can block that person anytime. So anyway, what ends up happening is that Zach Wilson ends up having to come in. And I think that he has an advantage of being the backup all throughout training camp. There was no pressure on him. He's got an opportunity now. You know, he lost the starting job when they traded for Aaron Rodgers. He comes in and, here we go. He's got an opportunity. He has been, he's had Aaron Rodgers in his ear all preseason. So he knows the system now because they let him play a lot in the preseason because Rodgers didn't really play a lot. And so he's had an opportunity to work with all these different receivers. If the offensive line can hold up, Zach Wilson, we know, was a first-round draft pick. I think that he has not been given the tools around him to display what he's capable of, but he may have those tools now. All of the receivers that they picked up, all these running backs that they brought in, they are gung-ho to get to the Super Bowl because they thought Aaron Rodgers was going to be there. And so now Zach will have the opportunity to reclaim his spot there because there's no telling whether or not Aaron Rodgers is going to retire or not. He may not want to go through all the rehab and everything. It's going to take an entire year. I know he was happy. I know everybody was like, oh, my God, he's going to play 2 or 3 more years. Now that he's been injured, there's no guarantee that that's going to happen, Chris.
Yeah, because, you got to look. Age plays a factor. As you get older, serious injuries sometimes take way longer on somebody who's 38 years old, pushing 40. That's going to take longer than a 26-year-old QB that does that. No, I'm not saying it's not just. I'm not saying it's easy on a 26-year-old, but your body's more alive. His body has been beat, mangled for years. Not saying he's not been great players. I'm just saying, look over the years, look at the hurts, the injuries he's already overcame in a year in his career. Now you're talking about this one at 38 years old? This is going to be.
He's 40. He's about to be 40.
Oh, okay. So he's going to be 40.
Yeah.
My bad. So this is going to be a big push for him. And he's really going to, and I mean, this is just how I'm looking at it, is if he had to go to a retreat and sit in darkness for 24, 48 hours, whatever it was, some crazy crap. If he had to do that to find out if he was going to retire, play, stay in Green Bay, that makes me really question on what's his next decision going to be, rehab or just walk away. But it really did. It did suck. I mean, I'm not a Rodgers fan, but I was really curious on how he would do with the Jets this season. And I mean, you can't even though I had to deal with him for kicking my team's ass for so many years. That sucks to see anybody make a transition to another team, play 4 snaps, and boom, done, gone. But I knew it was bad because I missed this pretty much game. I went out to eat after, where I was at. So last night at the end of the first day, we go out to eat. They got the game on, and they said Rodgers was just carted off. So we just missed the play. We just missed all that. And then they said the MRIs came back, or X-rays came back negative. So I'm like, okay, that means a positive result. So what's the update? Why he's not coming back then? And they never gave an update, and that's what told me that the Jets weren't telling the truth.
Yeah, I mean, for me, you could tell right away, that it was, if it was just a high ankle sprain, he'd have walked off the field. Okay. If it was, he had an ankle injury against the Bears in that Sunday night opener that one year when they had Khalil Mack and Roquan Smith and everybody at the same time. And he comes back and, and plays in the second half, and they end up winning the game.
Yeah.
There was no way that it was going to be a temporary injury. If it was a temporary injury, he'd have been back in the game because he knows how important it was, the spotlight that's on him, everything that was involved. So, for me, they knew right away what the deal was, but they didn't want to announce it during the game. One, they didn't want to lose their viewership of the game. Two, they didn't want to, really down the whole team even worse than they already were because he wasn't out there. And, it became basically a money deal at that point. And so, it didn't take long for him to say this morning, oh, well, yeah, he tore his ACL. He's done for the year. And then you got all these media outlets that are like, well, what are they going to do? Tom Brady should come out of retirement, or they should trade for, Gardner Minshew. And I'm like, Gardner Minshew,
Yeah.
I was stunned. They're bringing up, well, Drew Brees is out there. Who else is available that's a real quarterback that can unretire? You've seen that commercial there, where they got the Fritos and the Pepsi, and all the guys are, sitting on the couch and are like, hey, let's unretire. And one of them can't run, and one of them, can't read the damn thing because he's got his glasses on. And, there was a hilarious commercial, but trying to bring guys that have been out of football for multiple years back to play, I think is ridiculous. I think they should give the ball to Zach Wilson He is in this position for a reason. If they didn't think that he could cut it, in case something happened, they would have brought somebody else in. And so, I think he's going to be fine. They're not going to win 12 games, but they're still a playoff caliber defense. They've still got, a great running game with the two runners. And if he makes some plays, remember, they've got Garrett Wilson, who was the offensive rookie of the year. They brought in these other guys that know the system, so they know where they're supposed to be. They'll be able to help him. He's got the tools around him. If he trusts in his coaches, they'll trust in him. The Jets will be fine. I think they're still going to win quite a few games this year.
Yeah, I'm curious. I'm pulling for Zach. I would like to see if he can reclaim the starting job. And that might actually play a lot of factor too. Because what if the Jets do make the playoffs, for say, with Zach Wilson? What if they win one or two playoff games with Zach Wilson? Aaron Rodgers says, hey, I'm coming back. My rehab went good. I'm feeling good. What does the Jets do now? Because now your young QB, franchise QB, is playing to the level you need him to play and panning out. If that happens, so now you would have to find somebody that will be willing to risk it to trading for Aaron Rodgers come back from Achilles. So this situation in New York, I'm really curious on how it plays out.
Well, now that we've talked about the Jets, let's move on to the Buffalo Bills, and they imploded last night thanks to Josh Allen. All the turnovers, he did everything that he did as a young player, he did in that game last night. Throwing interceptions, taking risks that he didn't need to take, running with the ball, hurdling over people when you don't need to do that, putting himself in harm's way. And I've seen quite a few people say Josh Allen will never be the same since the loss of Brian Daboll, the offensive coordinator. He goes to New York, and elevates Daniel Jones, and Josh Allen comes back down to earth because he doesn't have people there to handhold him through difficulties so that he could be the MVP type caliber player that we have seen in previous years. I don't think it was an accident that the Cincinnati Bengals put the hurt on them in Buffalo last year in the playoffs. I think that they can recover from this, but it's not going to be easy. They're going to have a hard time. They only put up 16 points against the New York Jets, a team that's supposed to be high-powered offense. Now, once again, the Jets have a great defense, so it's hard to tell whether the Bills are just that bad or the Jets are just that good defensively. But, I just feel like that he has regressed each of those last 2 years. Granted, we've only played one game, but it sure didn't look good. And he cost his team the game last night.
For sure. I was actually surprised. A little bit of the game I seen last night at the restaurant. Josh Allen did not look good at all.
You've got smoke or something all over your camera because it's really fuzzy. Wipe it off.
Yeah, I was wondering. But
there you go. That's a little better. Well, still not great.
Oh, hang on, let me.
Well, so anyway, there you go. That's way better. I don't know. It must have been a software problem.
Yeah,
anyway,
I just turned the camera off and on and we're good.
Yeah, Ron says, this changes the whole Dallas Jets game this weekend. It's not looking good for the Jets. You think? I think that, I was worried about Aaron Rodgers in that game if he was playing in the game. The way that the Dallas defense dominated the Giants front, the Jets are not any better than the Giants when it comes to their up front offensive line. Zach Wilson's going to be running for his life this next weekend. Pretty sure bet you can put your money on the Dallas Cowboys.
Also,
if you'll share week two's games, we can preview week two's games and talk about who we think's going to win them. I know for sure who the Thursday night game is. The Minnesota Vikings travel to the Philadelphia Eagles. A rematch from last year's Monday Night Football game, on which the Vikings scored the first 7 points and then never scored again, as Philadelphia dominated the Minnesota Vikings. I think that, both these teams were lackluster in week one. As we said before, Philadelphia, they, had to hold on to win against the New England Patriots. Minnesota did not look good at home against Tampa Bay. I don't know what the odds are yet, but I'll tell you in a minute. But for my money, I'm taking the Philadelphia Eagles. I don't know how many points they're going to give them right now.
is it showing good?
I would, zoom in to the top one, and then we'll, there you go, that'll work.
Yeah.
What do you think about Vikings-Eagles, Chris?
Vikings-Eagles? I feel like the Eagles are going to run away with this one. I mean, it could be closer, but I expect the Eagles to bounce back and come ready to play from last week. And I got to see a lot more out of Minnesota. I'm still kind of shocked that they lost to Tampa because I didn't see it happening. But it might not be a blowout, could be a close game. I could be wrong on that, but I just feel like the Eagles are going to dominate Thursday night's
They got
game.
the Eagles as 6.5-point favorites. I think they should cover. I think they should cover on that one. Moving on to the second game, you've got the Green Bay Packers at the Atlanta Falcons. At first glance, I'd have to say that this will be an interesting test for Jordan Love and the group because they're going on the road here to Atlanta. And, I just really was impressed with Green Bay in week one. Atlanta struggled against Carolina. And so I think that Green Bay is a 2-point favorite in the game. I think they should cover. I got Green Bay winning that game.
The Green Bay could definitely pull this game off. Atlanta could too. I think honestly with this game, I think it's a good test because like I said earlier, I like Atlanta's defense. They play good, tough, hard. So I think this is going to be a good tough for both clubs. I think you might actually get a real picture of what both of these teams could be this season. So I'm actually really curious. I know it's going to be hard for me to really kind of watch that game with the Lions playing at 1:00, unfortunately. So I'm going to try to watch highlights and tune in on commercial breaks to that game for sure.
Raiders at the Buffalo Bills. And, we're coming off a 1-point victory for the Raiders. We got the Buffalo throwing the game away, but they're playing at home. 8.5-point favorites for Buffalo. There's no way I'd take the spread on this game. If you're going to take Buffalo, which I think Buffalo can win the game, I think they were embarrassed on Monday night. Their coach is going to kick them in the rear end. Raiders coming all the way basically from the West Coast, even though it's Las Vegas. And they're playing in the early window. I'd take the money line for Buffalo.
Probably. I think Buffalo should win, but they better not play like they did last night. or it's going to be a long year in Buffalo because I know they're calling for Super Bowl or bust. But I do have Buffalo winning.
Baltimore Ravens at the Cincinnati Bengals. If both teams play like they played in week one, Baltimore should win this game easily on the road. The Bengals are actually favored by 3. I don't know how that could be. It's got to be because they're playing at home. But, for my money, I just didn't see any explosion out of the Cincinnati offense. Baltimore, their defense, looked really good, but they still gave up some points to Houston. Just depends on if Joe Burrow comes to play or not in this particular game. I think I like Baltimore to win the game. And, if you're going to take Cincinnati, then they got to win by, 4 points. I think that I would just have my money on the Baltimore Ravens because I don't think Cincinnati can cover the spread. If they do win, it'll be a 1 or 2 point game.
Okay, I'm having a brain fart. Baltimore and Cincinnati are in the same division, right?
Yes, they are.
Cleveland's in the same division too, right?
Yeah.
So this is
along with Pittsburgh.
Oh, okay, yeah. I just wanted to make sure I had it right. I was pretty positive. For some reason, I was having brain fart. But what I'm going to say is this game is fucking huge for Cincinnati. And it's kind of crazy to have a huge game in that aspect because they already lost to the Browns in a bad fashion. They lose this game, they're 0-2 to start in the division. Now, granted,
they
Cincinnati
started 0-2 last year and rebounded to make the playoffs and do well, but they only played one divisional rival in the first 2 weeks last year.
They played
Pittsburgh in week 1 and then Dallas in week 2, and they started 0-2 last year.
No, that's what I was getting ready to say.
Out of a hole, but doing it in the division, like you said, that's going to be rough.
Exactly. And now Joe Burrow has the talent. Cincinnati has the talent there to do it, but it's just making it harder. And what if your division teams are just as good as you? At the end, you lost a tiebreaker to 2 teams, possibly. So to me, is Cincinnati got to go in this game with urgency because that's the last thing you want to do is start 0-2 in the division. Now, like last year, at least it was only one division opponent than 2. And which, honestly, who made these schedules? Because that is kind of freaking crazy. That Cincinnati starts the season off back-to-back division opponents.
That's normal.
Is it really normal?
Indianapolis played Jacksonville last week. They're playing Houston this week.
Oh, okay. See, I never caught that before until now, but I think it all depends on what Cincinnati team shows up next week. So right now, I'm leaning towards Baltimore that they could cover the spread and pull this one out.
Seattle Seahawks at the Detroit Lions. The Lions are 5.5 point favorites right now. I think that the Lions should win the game, especially after what they looked like in week 1. But last year, Seattle had Detroit struggling, offensively against them. And so, maybe they've got something there for them. We'll just have to see. I would take the Lions in this game, but I think I would take the money line. I don't think I would take the spread because I think it'll be a close one.
As possibly be close, but if that O-line if that O-line don't show up, it's going to look a lot like week 1. Geno Smith is going to be getting pressured a lot. Speaking of Geno Smith, he has one of the they had a funny clip Someone completely missed the block on Donald in that game, and Donald come up the middle, and you could hear Geno Smith as he throw the ball. Oh fuck! He has a clear path as he throws the ball. It was pretty funny. So them are the things I'm looking at. Is that O-line going to show up? Are they going to be able to keep our defense contained and not let us rush Geno all night? I think the Lions could cover this spread just because I think that there's going to be a lot of momentum. I know Ford Field it's probably going to be the craziest you've ever seen Ford Field inside of an NFL game and maybe even in its history. Because it's been this hype train this whole offseason for Detroit has been crazy. It's new to have for a Detroit Lion fan. I think I speak for a lot of fans. And it just got even crazier after Thursday night. They haven't shut up about Lions football anywhere locally around here. So I think the Lions could cover that spread because I think they're going to come in hyped up and have a lot of home field advantage.
Well, plus they've had 10 days to prepare because they played on the opening Thursday night game. So, I just think it'll be closer than you think, but
for sure.
Detroit to win the game.
Yeah.
Moving on, we got the Indianapolis Colts at the Houston Texans, and the Colts are actually favored on the road here, and I think that's the Anthony Richardson factor. 1.5 points, for the Colts are favored. This will be a test for him because he's going on the road, his first time on the road in a real game. Houston's defense looked pretty decent against Baltimore. The offense, not so much, but the Colts defense was holding their own in the first half against Jacksonville. So I can see where they have the Colts favored here. I expect the Colts to win on the road in Houston.
Agreed. I think the Colts could definitely pull this game out. But Houston can always pull this game out. So I'm going to say 50-50 here. It's another game I'm going to try to tune into as well because I want to see how Richardson does this week. And I want to get more glimpses of Houston to see what they look like myself. So, my opinion,
the next batch of games.
Next batch.
All right, we got the Kansas City Chiefs at the Jacksonville Jaguars. And as expected, Chris Jones is returning for the Chiefs. Jacksonville struggled against the Colts on the road in the first half, but they managed to come back and win the game. Still no word on whether Travis Kelce, too early in the week. I expect him to play, and I think he makes that big a difference. I think the Chiefs were embarrassed to lose on Thursday night. And while I think this will be a very good game because this is a playoff rematch, I think it'll be close. I think the Chiefs get the victory.
You said Chris Jones is coming back?
Chris Jones signed his contract today, and he'll play in the game.
Wow. I did not hear that. That's good news for you guys. Even though your defense played pretty damn good.
They have the hardest time covering the spread, and we've talked about that, but I think if they're going to win, it'll be by at least 3. They're going to have to win by 4, But I think at this particular time, because of the way both teams looked in week 1, I think I'm more apt to take the money line, but I'll take the Chiefs to win.
I think the Chiefs win, bounce back, get the dub this week. But Jacksonville might come in there and surprise you. But I still feel like the Chiefs should win this game.
Chicago Bears and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Buccaneers are favored by 3. I think that this, after seeing what they did against Green Bay, after seeing what Tampa did against Minnesota, I favor the Bears to win this game. So I mean, obviously, they're getting 3 points. I would take the 3 points and take Chicago on the road against Tampa, they still got a defense. The offense is a little suspect, and that's good for a Chicago Bear defense that's still trying to gel with a lot of new parts.
The Bears should be able to win this game, but Tampa does have a good defense, and if they can contain Fields and get to Fields, they're going to have a shot. But it all depends on how that defense comes out and where Baker Mayfield's at. Because if he don't got the defense, if they're not playing to the top tee and he's struggling, then the Bears should have no problem unless they shoot themselves in the foot and lose this game.
Chargers at the Titans. The Chargers are favored by 3. I think that's on the basis that they have such a high-powered offense. Tennessee's got a really good defense, and they're playing at home. I'd like to think that the Chargers are going to go in and win the game easily, but with the Chargers defense being so porous, Derrick Henry will probably have a field day. It'll be a close game. I would take the money line and the Chargers.
I have to agree with that. And I agree with that.
New York Giants at the Arizona Cardinals. When you get embarrassed on national TV like they did, it's going to inspire them to work harder. I think that they're not going to lay down and die. They were a playoff team last year. They have some pretty big expectations in New York for both New York teams. And so I think that Brian Daboll will get some things ironed out. They'll go into Arizona, and I think that in comparison to a Washington team, New York's really got it together a lot better than Washington does offensively. When they get to rolling, I'm going to take the Giants easily. They're supposed to beat them by 5.5. I could see them winning by a touchdown or more.
Same. I think Giants get their bounce back week, find their legs, and see what they can get rolling. I would take Giants in the money line.
San Francisco 49ers are favored by 7.5 over the Rams, and this is no surprise to me. The 49ers have beaten up on the Rams for several years since McVay has become head coach of the Rams, Shanahan head coach of the 49ers. And, the only game that they managed to, surprise them and beat them basically is when, they played in the NFC Championship game a couple of years ago that let the Rams go on to win the Super Bowl. But I think that the 49ers have all the pieces of the puzzle. Their defense is way better than Seattle's. They've already showed they can go on the road and beat Pittsburgh in Pittsburgh. Just going down the coast a little bit to play in L.A. should be no problem. 49ers should win the game.
Same. I don't see 49ers losing this game by any means.
Jets and the Cowboys, 9.5-point favorites for the Cowboys. The number of points worries me because I know how good the defense is for the Jets, but the Cowboys defense is there. It's going to be which offense is better. I think it's clear that Dallas has the better offense, so they should win the game, but I think I would take the money line and be safe here. I don't think that the Cowboys are going to win by 10 points, even though they're playing at home.
I mean, it's an NFC East game. We all know how
No, Jets are not in the NFC East. They're in the AFC.
Sorry. I'm thinking the damn Giants. But it really depends on Zach Wilson got the dub last night. So, Dallas should come in there and win. I could see Dallas covering, but I could also see the Jets making a little bit of a push as well. If not, surprising them. If not surprising them, if they're not on top of their game. But I would go with Dallas.
Washington Commanders at the Denver Broncos. The Broncos are 3.5-point favorites. That sounds about right to me. The only thing here is that the defense, they're running basically the same defense, just a new defensive coordinator in Denver. And Eric Bieniemy, the offensive coordinator for Washington, is very familiar with that defense because he was in Kansas City all those years.
Yep.
I think Washington has a puncher's chance, but I expect Denver playing at home will come out fighting after the 1-point loss this last week. I think Denver Broncos can win the game. But I would take the money line. I think they'll win by a field goal. I don't think they're going to win by more than 3 points.
Same. I expect Denver for sure to win this game.
The Sunday night football game is the Miami Dolphins at the New England Patriots. And we saw the Dolphins explode on the Chargers, but the Patriots, they always scheme well to slow down these high-powered offenses. The offense played decently against the Philadelphia Eagles. The Eagles technically are a high-powered offense, and they held them down, to under 30 points. And so I think that, when you look at this game, I think New England will try their best to keep it close. But and that's why, the Dolphins are only favored by 2.5 on the strength of the Patriot defense, because Miami did not have any defense against the Chargers, except at the very end of the game. I like the Dolphins to win here, but I wouldn't be surprised if after getting on their high horse all the way out in L.A., they go into New England and lose the game on Sunday Night Football.
It's very possible because we all know Belichick's a hell of a coach. Like you said, we already know he's going to scheme. He's going to try to slow down that offense. And he did it with the Eagles the week prior. So if he can do that and keep his team and give his team a chance, they can do it.
The last two games is a Monday night doubleheader, which I do not agree with. Because if you're going to watch both games, you got to watch it on dueling screens. I don't know if they got a deal with Buffalo Wild Wings or what, but, you get 1 hour of the first game and then they take over with the other game. One is on ESPN, the other's on ABC. You got the Saints at the Panthers. The Saints are 3.5-point favorites. I agree with that. I think that they can win by more than that. I did not like the way Carolina's offensive line looked against Atlanta, and I think New Orleans has a much better defensive front than the Atlanta Falcons do. And so, I think that Demario Davis, Cameron Jordan, and the group there are going to wreck the game, and they're going to get to Bryce Young. I think that as long as Derek Carr doesn't make mistakes, they run the football, and they kind of play like they did this last week, Saints should win the game in Carolina.
I agree. For sure. But the
next game means that our final game is the Cleveland Browns, who are actually favored by 2 against the Pittsburgh Steelers in Pittsburgh. I think this is an overreaction on the line because of the way Pittsburgh looked against a dominant San Francisco 49er team. I think that because they're playing on Monday night, they got an extra day, to scheme and prepare for Cleveland. And I think that Pittsburgh is not going to lose 2 games in a row. I think that they will struggle to run the football, but they're going to open up the passing game with Kenny Pickett to George Pickens, Pat Freiermuth, on the basis of the Steeler defense holding down Deshaun Watson. I think that the Pittsburgh Steelers can win the game.
I'm excited about this one. Actually, Monday night. This is going to be a good game between Cleveland and the Steelers. I probably wouldn't bet on it. The Steelers should win this one at home. But if Cleveland didn't look half bad last week.
Going through what Ron has to say about the games that we have been talking about, he said no-brainer Dallas wins and they cover. Broncos get their first win. Dolphins win, and they are lucky to play New England early in the season with no snow, which is something we talked about in the offseason when they're scheduling. Are you playing in Buffalo and New England when it's snowing, or are you catching them later in the year when when it is snowing rather than in the early part of the season when it's not? This gives them an opportunity to win there. I think it would be much tougher. I remember the game between Buffalo and New England when it was, snowing and windy, and Buffalo couldn't pass the ball, And so New England just kept running it, and won the game. They get to the playoffs, and Buffalo passed it all day all over them because they didn't have to worry about the wind.
Yeah.
Ron says the Saints win and cover. Pittsburgh is winning, and I'm saying that reluctantly. I wouldn't bet on this game. I'm going to bet on that game. I think Pittsburgh wins the game. I think that Cleveland looked good against Cincinnati, but you got to remember Cincinnati had a quarterback coming off of an injury, hadn't played in the preseason. Both teams have had an opportunity to play a full game now. They've got film on each other. There's no way Pittsburgh plays as bad as they did against San Francisco against Cleveland. San Francisco's defense is dominant. Cleveland is good, and they can make plays, but I just think that they're going to have a lot more opportunities to make plays. I really like Pittsburgh this weekend or on Monday. And that concludes all of our games for week number 2.
Yes,
I don't have any other particular news to chat about. We kind of went through everything that was big. Aaron Rodgers, Chris Jones, J.K. Dobbins, the way all of the teams played this week. Looking forward to week 2. The Thursday night game will be on Amazon this week, between the Minnesota Vikings and the Philadelphia Eagles. I got to root for my Vikings, but I know the Eagles are going to win the game.
Yeah. I would say that unless the Eagles pull something out. Or the Vikings, I mean. But
Smoke cigars, it's fogging your brain.
Probably
Get the shades off. Get a little light in your day.
The shades are coming on.
Congratulations again to the Lions. If they're lucky, you'll get to play us in the Super Bowl, but I don't see that happening on either side. So,
hey, never know.
That's why they play the games.
Exactly.
Thanks, everybody, for joining us for our podcast on Tuesday night. Thank you, Chris, again for hosting.
No problem. Everybody, thank you guys for tuning in. Join us next week, 8 o'clock, every Tuesday. If you haven't liked, please go like, follow 4TH&Goal Sports. It'll give you a notification every time we're live as well. So thank you guys for joining. Week 1 was great. And I got a feeling, David, week 2 might be even better than week 1.
It'll be hard to top.
It would be pretty hard to top. And hopefully we get no more big news. Hopefully everybody stays healthy. That'd be nice. Because I'll just bring this up real quick. That's MetLife's another victim for MetLife's turf.
Yep. And they've talked about it. They think they ought to make all of the fields natural grass. But injuries happen on natural grass also.
Yeah. But you know what's crazy? And I didn't know this until they just said the Packers lineman came out and said, tagged the NFL in the status on Twitter, and it said, it's pretty amazing that you're going to take all the artificial turf out of all these stadiums, put real grass when the World Cup comes here to play, but you won't make them put real grass and take the fake turf out of here for us. But you'll do it for the soccer players, but you don't care about your own players.
The difference is this is basically out of context. Okay. The difference is that the World Cup's being played in the summertime when it's easy to maintain the fields and the grass. The NFL plays in the wintertime. And the reason that they have those artificial turf is it would be a mud bog. Okay. You've got, just like this weekend, they had the Jets and the Bills playing Sunday. On Saturday, they had the Cowboys, the Giants playing. There was a concert on Saturday night. There was a concert on Friday night and Saturday night. All the people that walk on that, all the people that are going on that, it was a moon, okay, between the Cowboys and the Giants. The field would have been unplayable on Monday night with all of the things that happened. And you got other stadiums, okay, that host high school football, college football, concerts, and then the NFL all going on at the same time. And we know this is a money business, okay? It's all about the bottom dollar. They can't have stadiums where they've got just natural grass at certain times, all the time for them, because they'll have to do something. And I don't know what the cost effectiveness is to cover the field up in order to do other events so that they can come back and uncover it so that they can play on the NFL, kind of like a basketball/hockey rink.
Yeah.
You got some of these stadiums that have the rollout fields, like in Vegas and in Arizona, where they have the natural grass fields because it's outside, it's in the sun, they have good weather most of the year, it's no problem. They can host whatever they want inside the domes of those stadiums, and then when they're ready to play the football, they roll it right back in. You can't do that at MetLife Stadium. The stadium's already been built.
That is true.
So,
there's
definitely, buddy. Have a good week. We'll see you on next Tuesday.
All right, buddy. Sounds good. Thank you guys again. Make sure you like and follow. We'll see you next Tuesday. Later, guys. Good luck to all your teams this week.